chess friends. Today we're going to talk about some of the Grandmaster traps, or more importantly, how do even some of the most experienced Grandmasters still fall a prey to some pretty efficient traps. So I'm going to try to give you some insight on how that happens, or why that happens, and what you can do so that you make sure it doesn't happen to you, while you can still keep the possibility to do it against your opponent. The game we're going to see was played between Vishy Anand and Vladimir Kramnik. This is like between two, I'd say, giants, you know. But still, you can see, as you will notice, there is a possibility for a trap, even on that level, which means that playing for traps is not dead. It is not one of the things that, as some people say, it's just okay. If I do that, and I'm committed to playing a really terrible game. That's not at all true. On the contrary. So let's take a look and see what this game was all about. After the moves of e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, and knight x to e5, we have what I call the real pass, the main line of the real pass. Actually, in this here, black played d6, driving the white knight back, and as it moved right down, black is picked up to actually continue with knight x d4, d4, and d5. And so this is like the major line of thought. Black is taking the pawn back, and he just wants to finish up the commit his development quickly. And if he does, really, if he does do that, shortly upon the moves of bishop to the d6 and castling, we wouldn't be having, white isn't going to have that much of a great advantage. So whatever white picks up to do right now, it has got to be quick. It has got to be fast enough before black has consolidated. This is a pretty important thinking. So what should white really do? Bishop d3 is more or less of a necessity. It's like an active move that helps white to position his pieces pretty well and advance squares. And the sooner this move actually jumps in, black plays with knight c6, castles, and bishop to the e7. We could easily realize that black's ready to castle right now, and you'd like to play with moves of bishop g4 or something of that kind. So it makes a good sense for him to play this way. White, on the other hand, of course, wants to follow the opposite. He plays c4, creating an immediate set challenge against the d5. d5 on its own protects the e4 knight, so it's a very good idea, as you could see, for white to really attempt that, in that way. So it's interesting. Right after the move c4 is being done, apparently white is getting to acquire a very comfortable position. Black played knight b4, seriously a good shot towards our knight. And then, of course, after this was played, white does the move of bishop e2. Now, nothing good or bad is actually happening right now. I think that we could say that both white and black are having a good game, good position. White's mostly lined up in order to challenge against black's center, so he's going to love to do that in a couple moves with playing maybe knight c3 and maybe something similar. So what's actually going on next? After that was done, black castled on the short side area. This is what he wanted to do. And then after short castles, of course, white picks up to move with knight of c3. So it's a pretty good sense here. We could understand the reason for white's whole play. It's all about quick activity, and it actually makes a good sense in this position because d5 is being very effectively threatened. So we do it quite well. What's going on after that? Okay, after white just played that move, surely black has to make a decision, and he played with bishop to f5 in order to actually solidify and come forward towards the middle. Now that's a pretty good idea, I think, for him. It's a good move because he needs to back up the center, and also he's getting ready. He might be able to play with the rest of the pieces, like the queen and the two rooks, so he can move them easily around the center. It is a good idea. It's interesting, at least. So what's white going to do? Should white actually choose to push up, or he should actually advance a little bit differently? What is the proper way to pick up and play in a position like that? How do we advance it? Very interesting, if you ask me, question to think about. I always say, the secret really in playing those kinds of positions lies within your ability to restrict, push your opponent back, make him go away. That's not an easy thing to do. But one of the ways you could achieve this is by making quiet moves. Like imagine the move of pawn to a3. Very good move. What you're doing is driving away the black knight and slowly setting up a very powerful position. So we know that black's going to have to retreat and actually move backward, go away. Once that was done, black does knight x to the c3. Not a great move, but that's, I guess, what he needs to do. And then as soon as this knight x to the c, white played with a move of b x to the c. This is really interesting. We get a good space and we have a good control. Everything feels nice. d5 is now going to be challenged. Let's take a look. Black plays knight c6, rook e1, rook e8, c6 to the d. I mean, I have to tell you, despite all of this, it does not really look like white's going to get any major advantage at this point. I don't mind necessarily like there's no advantage at all, but it doesn't look like there is a great advantage of any kind. So what happens after c6 to the d is that black played with the move queen takes to the d. And then after queen takes to the d5, white plays bishop f4, setting up for a very good control of the center and possibly a challenge against the c7. And it does feel quite good. I like the e5 square that we can take control of. I like the fact that, black is still going to be a little behind, and white's also got moves like knight e5 that he can make, or even bishop f3. It is a fairly good position, and it's going to continue being that way, step by step. So what's actually going on right now in this moment? Well, right after the move of bishop to f4, apparently black chose to play with rook a c8 just so he could defend there and feel good. So now what is white supposed to do right now? In this position, he played queen c1. Now, this looks very strange at first sight. I mean, you would almost be like, okay, I don't understand why a move like this is played, and see what will be the reason behind a candidate of this kind. It makes little to no sense at first. So this is a great, interesting move. The reason behind it is very simple. Once the queen comes right back to the c1 square, he wants to be able to play with a move of knight to the e5. We could then go very quickly with a move like pawn up to the bishop to f3, if need be, and it is almost perfect. It's almost brilliant to realize how white's position works. But there is something even bigger than this simple thing. You see, white sets up the advance like that with the knight and the rest of the pieces. That indeed matters a lot. But there, however, is a wonderful, really huge possibility that hangs inside black's position, and it's going to help white a huge time. Let's take a look and see what this is all about. After the move of queen to the c1, essentially black picked up to play knight a5. I mean, why not? He needs to do that move in order to prep himself forward and maybe consider moving down to c4. It's a good, sensible move candidate. And now, white plays c4. Brilliant. Really, really good. And the continuation in here is related to one idea alone. Restrict. You see, if you advance your pieces quickly and you push the opponent back, you achieve what I'd call often the restriction. In the opening, that's key. But then, where's the trap again? Queen e4. Black looks like he's got a good game. Here is where the trap comes in. Bishop d1. Perfect move with the idea that now black's queen is actually getting trapped. There is no place where he can move it that it will be safe, and then he's losing it that way anyway. This is amazing. Is it really possible for a queen to get trapped all that badly? You bet. It's not just possible, it's actually a fact. The bishop d1, black plays queen d3, rook e3, sets it up so the queen has nowhere to basically go. And then as soon as he makes the move queen takes to the c4, there's rook e5, which really reduces black's position, making him to suffer huge time and lose it. That is amazing. If you really think about this, this whole sequence is pretty amazing. Black plays, actually he doesn't even have a great way to go for it. He doesn't have a challenge nor a possibility. He's being threatened in different places. And with the attack against f5 and a5, we basically say game over. It is that fantastic. What Anand did as a mistake is that he thought that the queen is going to have a lot of power and pressure being there. But he didn't evaluate, he didn't assess enough all the dangers that come with this. And so you have to, what I recommend you is that you think. When you see a possibility of that kind, a chance to move up probably with a queen and keep it strong or have it a little more advanced, ask yourself, if I do it, is this going to actually help me? Or it's going to leave a weakness? On the other hand, you might want to actually provoke your opponent into doing something like this, because the moment he steps in, moving forward and pushing his own pieces up, that is going to be a good chance for you to counter and take a large advantage out of this whole thing. So it's a good idea. See, I really like this whole setup, especially the sequence in this moment, which is quite beautiful. Black never got the chance to make anything strong or more dangerous, and white was incredibly successful from the beginning. So keep that in mind. The best idea is to develop nicely and you provoke or let your opponent to open first. When he does it first, just take advantage of it and be successful. Let's take a look at another instructive Grandmaster trap. Now, this was a game that was played between Kasparov and Anand himself. Very interesting. So the game started off pretty nicely. It all started with e4, c5, knight f3, knight to the c6, d4 exchange, knight x to the d4. So yeah, basically white got the knight. Black, actually, he just played with queen to c7, knight c3, and e6. So it was all fairly easy. Just like black is setting up the Scheveningen setup he wants to arrange and achieve quite quickly with this. Makes sense. So what is white supposed to do? Well, white played bishop e3 here. And we can understand that it's all about one thing: easy development. No complications, no tactics, none of that. No, just can I develop, can you develop as fast as you can, and then go from there. And I think that white could certainly do that. He can do even more than that. Just need to be consistent. So bishop e3 was a great move. After that, black played a6, and then white played the move of bishop to the d3. And you can now see the value of all of this. The real value of all this development, of all that strength, that lies within, okay, once I get the space, once I have gotten the actual control and all the possibilities, things are going to be great. Now we're also having the shot to play with f4, which could come in any second, and it really looks good. Oftentimes, your plan or your activity must be towards the center. Everything you do must be towards the center. So if you could bring them closer to that, you could be very successful. White does this, and he knows that things are going well. So let's see. This, what should black do? I mean, he's not in a very comfortable position. So what black picked up to do, really, indeed, was the move of knight f6. Short castles and then knight f5. It does make a good sense, actually. When you think about that move, the last move of black just brings his knight a bit closer. He's kind of set up to attack and ready. It's not a bad thing. It's really actually a good version on how he wants to make things work. It's, however, a large question to ask ourselves, what are we supposed to do? I mean, how is white supposed to respond to that type of plan? When you find yourself in a situation of that kind, the first reaction is always going to be, I want to attack. And it's not a bad reaction. It's actually a good thing to consider attacking. But in most times, you wouldn't be able to. What you've got to do instead of actually looking for a quick attack or tactic is to think about completing your development or making simple moves just so that you can get in the position, so you can get in the right place so an attack could be developed. And so when white played with the move h3, that's exactly what he's looking for. h3 sets up the g4 square, so black certainly cannot break down there. But more importantly, we've got moves. We've got ideas like f4 in that moment. We've got queen e2. We've got other opportunities. And so you could see that it's all about a really good protection and a backup. It's a beautiful move. Step by step, we're doing well. Now, next move, of course, black played bishop to the c5, hoping to finish up with the development and get ready. And so now white also has to make an important decision where to go. So what did you do? King h1. Keep it simple. There's no easy way to explain the value of keeping things simple, except for me to tell you that by making moves like king to h1 and making it as simple as you can, you'll give it a lot more time for the rest of your pieces to come out. You'll be able to finish up quite quickly by playing with moves like rook to the d1, possibly even prepping yourself up for the f4, and it's going to be a great idea. Just don't forget that little thing. Keep it simple. With that in mind, white is surely ready. He could come up with many other things right now in this position with whether it's going to be f4 up to the e5 or more. And it is a good idea. Step by step. We're really doing it well. So what are we going to do next move? Actually, after that, black obviously played with d6. And then after the move of pawn up to the d6, surely we would go for a move f4. I love that. It's a strong move. It's a good idea because now the black knight has to move back or away. And then we can concentrate on getting our queen forward. We can move it up against the opponent's king through f3. Maybe e5 can follow. And it's a wonderful idea. One step at a time. All you really want to do is to make sure that you get these pieces in line and finish them up. Develop them so that they have the proper control. So what's come out now? After the f4, black did the move knight of the c6. It's a normal move. Just getting ready. But then white played e5. And this was the trap. Again, it was more of a positional trap, not the kind of trap that you would expect of happening, like in one or two moves. The positional trap was to delay black's development or kind of provoke him to delay it. And as black continued delaying his development and getting back or leaving his forces behind, white kept on growing his position to the point where we're certainly going to be having the breakthrough. Now black plays knight x to the knight to the e5, of course, and just wanted to say why didn't you play d6 to the e5? That makes a lot of sense because d6 to the e would look like, all right, well, why not? Just a normal move to help him stay better. Well, if he did that, white would have had the ability to play with the knight to e5 very quickly. And now after the move of knight to the b5, black is ready to lose. There isn't too much that he can do. Anywhere he goes is going to be an even stronger type of a threat. For example, you could say that black can play now in this position queen e7 or 8x to the b. There's bishop takes the c. There is the fact that the black king cannot castle at any time soon. And then we're winning. I love this sequence. But more importantly, what I love is that after black sacrifices the knight, there is a continuation to white's attack. Now, I do not feel that white did it correctly. I don't think that this was the proper way to go. I feel like a move of knight db5 would have been so much better and strong. It's like if black played with a move of 8x to the b, there could have been bishop takes to the b5 even, king goes back, bishop takes to the c5, and then moves like queen to the d8 would have been a killer to black, I feel. Not necessarily, but it's a pretty good feeling. And just actually, this is great. See, The key about these situations is to think and concentrate on the opportunity to advance, to attack. It's not going to be easy to do, but you want to think like that. You want to be able to do it. If white does it this way, black's really not having anything. Can't open, he cannot advance, he's behind and backward, and the loss is almost inevitable. Great stuff. Well, surely that's caused because of black's bad development. You gotta understand it. If your opponent develops poorly, you need to be thinking about faster ways to take advantage. Because the bad development that he's gonna get will not allow him, will not give him any pieces of any kind that he could use and come to confront you. This is why it's important that you're faster in any way that you will use for your tactics, for your attack. That's a big idea, big thing. So it's really all that about this game. Now I want to show you one more interesting trap that, again, more or less exists out of a very natural position. Very natural, very nicely placed, and everything is just quite cool. So let's take a look. In this next game, we're seeing Vishanan playing against Andrews Billoware. This was actually a simultaneous exhibition game. And it's really exciting because of that, because it was a simul. So let's see what really happened. After the moves of e4, knight f6, and e5, as white played it, basically black played the move of knight of the d5. It's a standard way of developing. He's basically getting ready to have his own knight in the center. White plays d4, d5, and knight f3 to support it. Now, I've never been a great fan of the Alekhine opening, and one of the reasons is because in most times it turns out really a little bit passive. But in this case, what I suppose is that black wanted to counter white's center, and in some way he did. He actually played d6 to the e5, now knight x to the e5, and knight d7. Now you see, there's something very special when you have the center control. And the reason is that if you could take or command the middle, you've got an extraordinary amount of opportunities, possibilities that you never thought that you could control, and then, ideas that will help you brilliantly. The question is, what should white try to do in this position? Where to go next? What to do? Beautiful knight, good pawn on the d4, and a solid position to play with. So what's next? What is white supposed to do right now? See, I personally think that retreating is not a good idea. We don't want to go back. Now, keeping it there is a possibility, although, I guess black will exchange and develop his pieces quite easily. So white didn't want to do that either. What we need to do is to consider the so-called forcing moves. It doesn't matter whether they're going to be actual checks, captures, or direct threats, but as long as they're forcing and they are fast, there is a great chance we'll be very successful. The forcing move now happened to be knight takes f7. See, every successful attack would almost always go with forcing moves. Doesn't matter if it's checks, captures, or direct threats. The idea is that we will do these kinds of moves and we could be extremely successful as we go along. With that in mind, too, we understand the big problem. That capture on f7 practically tears down the black position. It is, it's amazing. So actually, that is great. With knight takes f7, then black has to do the move of king takes to the f7. We have queen to the h5 in this moment, king e6, and then there's the move of c4 out there. Okay, so that is amazing. So this is what you want to do in this position. Just advance, attack, threaten, and keep the extra shots going. Everything, every move is brilliant. Now look at black. Even if you just look at him now, it's like he's trying to get away, and he can't. It's that bad, that difficult to play. He plays knight 5 to the f6. Now white only has one queen to lead up the attack with, but it's more than enough. Because the reality is that most of black's good pieces are completely off. like that bishop on f8, that doesn't seem like it's doing anything. So how would you like to continue the attack right here? So the black queen king is in the d6, it's exposed. The rest of his pieces are totally on the backside area that don't do anything. So what should white try and do next? What's the best idea for white to carry on and actually continue with his attack? Is there a way to do this? To carry it forward or make more threats? Yes, there is. You just need to understand that one of the best things that you've got to do is to advance your pieces. If you get them there, if you have them a little more advanced, things are going to work perfectly. So do that. So what white played alongside here was the move of queen to the f7, and it's amazing. What is this all about? Well, a couple things, obviously, but most important thing, let's get the queen close. We've got queen e6 check right now. Bishop f4 is there too. We've got the black king awfully placed in a backside position. It's really just all those pieces and the fact that when they start moving forward, when white's pieces start moving forward, black has nothing to respond to it. So it was great. What comes next is that black actually played with the move of the queen f7, knight to the e5, obviously challenging the queen. And then after knight e5, white plays bishop f4, pinning down the knight and keeping black under a severe pressure. It's a great, beautiful move. We have knight c3 that we could do. We've got long side castles that we could do in this case, which is good. And why not? Let's do it. One of the biggest rules of any successful attack is the opportunity to create more pressure. Pressure is going to keep your opponent tied down behind, and when you do that, you are going to make him feel like he cannot escape or he cannot do much more for his own position or for his pieces. Now that's what we're following. That's what Anand wanted in this game. And so in this case, after black played c5, white does knight c3. We don't have to be thinking about big tactics or large attacks. They don't really matter in this position. What matters is the possibility to just keep him back there. And with so few good moves available to black, you can realize why that is such a bad game, because like he really can't make anything. Now, most of those forces that black is having are passive or bad or unable. And so white makes it just so good and beautiful with only a couple extra moves. It was great. What about that now? I mean, is there any way on how black could sort of attempt to complicate? Sure, just not here. So knight c3, black played a6, and now b4. Remember that within any attack, it doesn't matter through which way it arises, whether it's through sacrifices or opening lines or anything. You've got to be the one to give it more files. It's like if you get more open lines, things are suddenly going to work out perfect, and that's what we're going for now. More open files, more tactical possibilities. It's just a great idea. And what about black? Well, that's the good question. I don't think that black's got anything good to do. Opening. So remember the 4 elements of attack. Target is necessary. Pieces that you could involve, amount of open files, and of course the main defender being removed. The main defender right now being like that knight on the e5. We've got the king and the d6. That's actually not so good after all. He's got a number of fairly backside pieces, so white's just getting ready to open against it and attack or create threats. It was very wonderfully played. Very nice to open up that way, and it's perfect. So actually, after it was played, queen b6, now white does b takes the c, and bishop takes c5, exposing the king even further. Castles, rook e1, and before he knows it, after king d6, c5, black was in trouble. There's rook c1, there's c6, and exchange. I'm pretty sure that there were better and more precise ways on how white could fight, in order to get the advantage much clearer, but it wasn't all that bad as white played it in here as well, so it was pretty good. The 2 rooks, the bishop, the queen, the pawn that could move, and the other challenges. What I want to say as most important is that remember, traps exist or will occur naturally just by actually making sure that we get those pieces advanced, and then in one way or another, it's really gonna work. As long as you can create more pressure against your opponent, as long as you can maintain that, the rest is always going to be much easier to do. So just think about it that way and remember. So these are my suggestions on how great masters of the past or in present actually follow the concept of creating traps. Traps do not exist because of a special one move circumstance. It's usually a product of a position in which the opponent misevaluates, but we alone have the preparation and means to prove him that wrong.